And we are live. Welcome to Talking Crit. We have a special today. It's the TotalCon, PreCon, I don't know, icebreaker, snowbreaker celebration, whatever. We have Allen Hammack with us. If you don't know who Allen is, he did a lot of stuff in the TSR days, the real days of D&D, not these Wizards of the Coast. Oh, in any case, before we logged in, for those of you who might not realize this, Texas is, I guess, hell froze over in Texas right now.
It actually did. We broke every single temperature record there was to break this week. Every one we broke. So I'm broadcast. Luckily, I'm broadcast for the warehouse, which still has power and still has internet. We are one of the few houses. I think you and I were talking about this, Eric. We're the few houses with power because we're on the same grid as the police station right behind my house. And so they're not shutting off power to the hospitals or police stations, but every other person I know that lives in the area has had rolling blackouts, some for as long as 72 hours. So it's crazy. Yeah, it is absolutely nuts here. All the fast food places are out of food. The store shelves are empty. It's nuts, man. I mean, the funny thing is you can't, if your electricity out and you don't have a gas grill, you can't cook food. So when you go in some of these stores, like I went the other day, I thought I'd really like to have a pizza. Well, there was tons of frozen pizzas there because nobody can cook a frozen pizza if their electricity's out. I was like, oh, great idea. But all the dry foods were gone. Anything dry was gone because you can still eat that. But yeah, it's nuts here, but we're persevering, and it's going to be 60 degrees by next week, which is ridiculous. That's Texas for you, though. It's
one of my favorite Wizards of the Coast people. Kurt Gould is on. Hi.
Kurt. Kurt started. He's been showing up lately. First of all, he dissed us really bad. Then when Skeeter showed up, we guilted him to start to come, watching us more regularly because he was here for Skeeter. But yeah,
everybody comes for Skeeter. They're afraid not to.
So what we're doing this week, after we talked about it earlier, was we're trying to have a lot of the special guests for TotalCon on, because one of the fun parts about going to convention is you get to hang out with the special guests and you get to hear them tell tales about the old days or just about, gaming in general. And the problem with online conventions, as fun as they are and as necessary as they are in this time of COVID, is you don't get these one-on-one conversations with anybody. That's what you miss, is being able to sit down at a table and either have them run a game in person or talk to you. And
beer.
Hey, we're all loaded up. I broke up my Balcones Blue. I mean, I this special occasion.
If I can help, there we go. The Turtle Tenkar's, beer mug.
His fake beer of the night.
How did you know it was the fake beer of the night? I've got hot water going on.
Okay, there we go.
No, this stuff is good stuff. Listen, I have fake beer because I forgot to have 7-Eleven deliver me more beer.
Oh, they deliver beer there? Well, that's nice.
You can have 7-Eleven deliver beer, and they'll deliver up to like 2 12-packs, which is great. But I forgot to have.
Angelia just joined us. Hello, Angelia.
Yes.
Nice to have you here.
The key person of the con that we're talking about, TotalCon.
We poached your special guest. Sorry.
We'll give him back.
What games are you running at TotalCon for those who are interested?
I am running 2 top secret.
Oh, nice! The new top secret. Nice. Yes.
Well, I mean, when they picked the theme of the convention being espionage, it kind of
it kind of wrote itself.
So, kind of had to. So anyway, I'm actually running a couple of adventures, not my own, but they are from New Comet Games. And matter of fact, one of them was the winner of the 3 Castles Award, the Operation Deep Freeze and Operation Thunderclap.
I enjoyed those. I read both of those. I enjoyed those. Very, very fun adventures.
Well, I'm going to digress just a minute.
Go ahead. Digress all you want. This is about you digressing. This is all about you.
It's a hex crawl, Alan. We go wherever we go.
what it reminded me when I was judging, when I was at TSR, one of my earliest duties in 1978 and 79 was to look at submissions, which as book publishers call it, the slush pile, because there is a lot of slush out there that you have to go through to find, one snowflake or one gem. But I was really surprised at the way that this Operation Thunderclap came in. Rarely had we seen a module where the author paid so much attention to the original rules and the original publisher, and everything was developed, and they had their own art, and it had plot, and it had logical streaming, and so everything was very good on it. So I thought I'd try my hand at wiping out an agent team with it. So.
And it's easy to wipe out people in Top Secret, because one of the things I just saw that John said, they recently bought Top Secret First Edition. They made player characters. And Eric and I have touched on this before in our show, but one of the worst games to get D&D players to do was get them to do a Top Secret game, because they'd all be dead in 5 minutes, because they'd all roll up their characters like, okay, we run up to the door, we kick the door in. Okay, yeah. AK-47 shoots, and you're all everybody's dead. You lost your eye. You can't walk anymore. Whoa, what happened? It's a gun. Guns are dangerous. This is not D&D. There's no clerics.
No, or the claymore went off that was wired to the door.
Right.
There are things that you have to be a little more circumspect about. Like try never to get shot, but if you do, try to save your fame and fortune points for those critical moments.
So Alan, so going back to TSR, now, you didn't work there a long time. Probably what you're best known for at TSR was C2 Ghost Tower Inverness, which is classic. Everybody pretty much, if you know First Edition D&D, you know that. You worked on quite a few more things there. You were Top Secret editor, correct?
Right. It was 5 years that I worked there, which seemed like a long time to me.
Actually, that's longer than I thought. I might have been thinking of Lord Schick, because I remember I was so shocked to learn he only worked there like a year and a half. I was like, really? It seems like you were there that a long time.
A little, I think a little more than that, because he didn't come in too far after I did. But it's not like Zeb and Harold who stayed on for a long time after that, and got to produce masterpieces like All My Children. Right now. Anyway, yeah. So I was one of the team of editors on the original Dungeon Master's Guide, which was really a cool experience. I got to edit a board game that TSR adapted that everyone's forgotten about, called Fourth Dimension, which was a Doctor Who ripoff, but we didn't know at the time because nobody in America had seen Doctor Who.
Interesting.
In a year or two. Well, it was abstract. They used the concept of time warps and called some of the pieces Time Lords and such and such. So, but it was a kind of three-dimensional chess played on a two-dimensional board, but they had little out areas where you could warp out and then come back in at different places on the board. So you had to really think three-dimensionally in chess to work this game out. So it was fun.
So that was your. What else? What other projects did you edit or
I was
mess around with when you were there?
Editing and developing, even though we eventually broke those into different categories for credits, were a lot of the same thing. Everybody did a lot of all of that. So I also was one of the editors on the second edition Boot Hill, which was the first boxed edition. Mm-hmm. I like to tease Steve Winter. It was the real Boot Hill, not the touchy feely third edition. Gosh, many more. I was one of the 4 major editors on the Deities and Demigods, which meant that as each of the editors fleshed out and wrote certain sections, did extra research into some of the areas, because Jim Ward was overwhelmed with the stuff that he had done and the revisions we kept asking him to make. So we had a good deal of input on that. Star Frontiers. Top Secret, I was the editor and developer on. I was just part of the team on Star Frontiers, but that's why the credits only say design team on that, because so many of us, we love science fiction. We wanted it to be perfect, and we all got our fingers in the pie and kind of messed it around a little bit. So so you can see the good things that can happen from committees and the bad things. So, what else? A number of modules, as you said: Ghost Tower of Inverness, A3, the assault on the area of the slave lords, I9, the I could never publish it today, Day of Al Akbar module, and the mini game Viking Gods.
Oh yeah, mini games. I love the old mini games too. Those were that. When you had Viking Gods, was that something you had written before, or did you write that when you came to?
I wrote that just for TSR. It was entire. I really wanted to do a board game. War games were my love and what got me eventually into miniatures and eventually into the role-playing games, which started, as we know, as a supplement in the back of a miniatures set of chainmail. And so I'd wanted to write a war game. The idea for the mini games came along. Tom Wam says, I'll do one. And of course, you don't say no to Tom Wam, and the rest of us, everybody had great ideas. There was Tom's Iceberg games, and they've invaded Pleasantville, and Kevin Hendricks and the Battle of the Alamo, and I said, I know a lot about Norse mythology. I'll write Viking Gods, just the entirety of Ragnarok in one mini game. Yeah, that was a challenge.
I love all, the mini games were so cool because I don't think there was a bad mini game. I have all of them. I've played them all except for the Alamo. I don't think I played that one. They're all just, it's really weird. They're all really good, but all in different ways. They're not the same system. They don't use the same kinds of strategies, but they're all really cool, and they are really fun little games just to put in your pocket and just take with you somewhere. We used to bring them to school. Those in the what were the pocket games by C. Jackson game? Was C. Jackson or the other?
Yeah, it was. It was metagaming first.
Like Ogres, metagaming. They had Ogre,
yeah. But then Steve Jackson had Ogre, GEV, Shockwave.
TSR was a little better though, because TSR they came in these cool little plastic cases,
snap pieces that you could everything up, and it didn't take up much room in your backpack, and it was a lot of fun. Well, the reason the games were different is because none of us talked to each other until the playtesting stage, and we all came out, and all of the major design work, of course, was done by then, and so we literally had that many different minds all working without seeing what the other folks were doing, other than knowing their title, and then we saw what everybody had done and went, this was cool, good selection.
Damn. I had a few of the TSR games. I know there was a vampire one that was by TSR. There were a few. The problem is all my mini games at some point got destroyed when my son was young. We get into them, and those little they weren't even cardboard chits. Those little heavy paper chits that you had to cut out yourself.
Yeah,
all over the place. It was like, all right, well, I am not going to figure out what goes to what. He had fun.
I have the remnants of my dungeon board game, and because it was played a lot, the thin pieces and stuff, it suffers. It looks like a well played and well loved game. So,
and that's what it should be. That is, and dungeon is great. Like my niece, I think she was 7 when I got her dungeon board game. She was always into Dungeons and Dragons. Never played it, and she loves it. And she only cheated her first 2 or 3 times. Then it became what you really understood is like, I don't need to cheat to do well at this game. There's a way to figure this out. So it's a great introduction to gaming. That's awesome.
Yeah. I'll take a quick break again to talk about the convention, TotalCon. is by our lovely friends up in Boston, nearby. And of course, it's virtual this year. So we're all doing our best trying to pitch in, and some of the guests are running games for a charity that they have going, right, which is really the reason that there's a small entry fee. We appreciate everyone who contributes to the charity in that way, for the purpose of getting abused by me in a top secret game. Particularly. I promise I won't kill you in the first 5 minutes.
No claymores in the first room.
Right. But it's a wonderful convention, and Angelia and Jen and Steve and Ben, all the rest take great care of us, and it's friendly. And I think all of us, the first time that we went, because you've all been, go, this is a great convention, I need to come back.
Oh God, yeah.
Well, it kills me I've never been. Everybody that I know that's been has had a great time. And last year was the year I was most upset about missing it, because it happened right before COVID, and everybody I knew went last year and they had a great time. And I just kept thinking, man, I have got to go to this next year. And of course, unfortunately, we're doing it online this year. So maybe next year, but this is the one con I haven't been to that I really, really want to attend at some point.
And the charity games, it's Doctors Without Borders, wonderful group. The last year TotalCon, the convention people know me because I'm always the guest that badgers them. Hey, I want to play too. I need a badge where I can sign up for events. So I actually got to play with this Bill Webb guy, and
he's overrated. That guy's overrated
for the first time.
A little overrated, but some people like his styles, I guess. So, Well, so that's what's cool, and they have such a great guest list every year because everybody on the Northeast or up the East Coast goes there because it's so close. Oh, yeah. So they get a lot of guys that we don't I don't see when Eric and we all go to Gen Con or Gary Con, or not Gen Con, Gary Con or Game Hole or North Texas. There's even a few people that we don't get out as much North Texas. I mean, although I think we get most of the guest lists from North Texas, or has been in North Texas at one point or another.
Well, it makes sense that you're going to draw more strongly from your region. It's more practical for a lot of people to get there, and more practical for a lot of the people who have miniatures and can drive. I have one of my suitcases when I fly is loaded with gaming material, but that's the other has to be closed. You can't take that much gaming material.
Right. God bless you, Alan. I can't. I'm carry-on only. Although I do remember my first Gary Con, I wound up sitting next to another gamer, a woman who had, honest to God, a luggage trunk just of the games that she picked up at Gary Con that she had to wait for. I was just like, you got it. I loved it. I mean, TotalCon I can drive to. And I love that. TotalCon is awesome for that. And I forget if it was last year or the year before. I've been to the last two TotalCons. Stefan Picorni, Dwarven Forge, took an Uber from Brooklyn.
Only Stefan would do that. Yeah.
Yes.
Was it probably like a $8,000 Uber? I'm sure.
I have no idea.
Oh God.
It was probably 2019. Because I think he was still living in Brooklyn at the time. And it's like, everybody, I took an Uber from Brooklyn.
That Uber driver was happy after that was done.
Yes.
He got
I do remember my first experience getting onto a Southwest plane, and the baggage handler says, "What have you got in here, lead?" And I said, "Yes."
Pretty much.
Lead computer. Yeah.
So Alan, back in the day, which Gen Cons did you go to? I'm sure you hit a couple of those early Gen Cons. Do you remember which ones you went to?
I sure do, because that kind of led directly to me getting hired. So my first Gen Con was Gen Con 9. they'll correct me on this. We in Alabama decided to make road trips to the great conventions of the year. So we went to Origins 1 and GaryCon 9. I think I've got the year right. Anyway,
Wow.
and then Origins 2. It was the Origins in Baltimore at Johns Hopkins University. And in both of those, our team played in the D&D tournaments, this new game. We figured, hey, it's a new game, anybody could win. And our team won, and at Gen Con that year, the awards were by class, not by team. And I won Best Mage. And I went, huh. Now I found out the penalty for winning things like that is that the organizers ask you to run the events next year.
Oh, yeah, you already won that.
Drafted as a judge
Smart.
for the following year, for Gen Con 10, which was the one at the Playboy Club. Very
Nice.
notable. But parts of it were also spread out. And gosh, that was a great con for so many reasons. But again, people saw me as a judge then, and that plus the articles that I'd written to the Dragon and the letters to the Dragon that got rejected, I was in their eye. But I answered the one ad in the Dragon just like everybody. I was the first employee hired off of a one ad from the Dragon.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah.
That is interesting. So when you go to those first few Gen Cons, and then you attended a convention now, what strikes you as the main big difference between what you saw back then and what you see now?
Well, the main difference is, as a player at an early con, I'm scheming how to efficiently get into every slot from 8 a.m. until midnight every day to maximize my gaming experience. when you work for a game company, you find that you are required to work nearly that many slots running games for other people. And now I like to go to a convention and run a game or possibly two in a day, and maybe play a game and relax with my friends and talk with people and take it easy.
Yeah, well, so a story. So it's about Allen. So running one of the things, and Angela will understand this, when you run a convention, you don't get nearly as much time to do the fun things as you think you would like to do. It's like running a game store. Once you run a game store in 2 years, you hate games because you're like, I can't stand to see another game. I'm tired of dealing with it. The same thing with running a convention. After a while, you're just so busy that the whole convention is like a blur. It was literally like 3 to 5 years after we started having Errol Otis that I said more than hi to him, because I just could never catch him in the hall or talk to him. So Allen had been to a few of our conventions, and I don't think I'd ever said more than hi to Allen too. I was just too busy. Our schedules were crazy. You just always have something going on. And plus I also run a booth there. And so I'm selling stuff there. And then Allen will remember this. So one night, I don't remember which one this was. We're sitting there and everybody else is in bed. And it's like, there's like about 10 of us. And it's the con serving girls, a couple of guys, I have no clue who they are, a couple of friends, and Allen. And so I'm like, what's this special guest? This guy's old. What's he doing up this late? Because it's sort of like 2 a.m, And so after I finish doing something, I go, they're sitting at the table, drinking, hanging out. I'm like, well, I've never actually got to talk to Allen very much, because I really had never gotten to talk to him. So that was probably the first time I ever really got to talk to you. And I remember I was just so impressed, because you were actually hanging out with people that were, I won't say quite a bit younger than you, but young enough to where everybody your age was already in bed. Let's put it that way. And you were the only one. You were the oldest one at the table that was still awake. And so that impressed me right there. And you were still drinking, which impressed me also. And so, and I was like, man, I got to get to know this Allen guy better. He knows how to party, man. He's hanging with everybody. And so then the more I talked to you, I realized you had a great sense of humor, just a really fun guy. And I just felt bad. It was so long before I actually got to, sit down and do something with you. But but yeah, that's one of the things I love about cons is being able just to hang out with kind of guys that, you've heard about your whole life. You don't really know much about. Right. Luckily, most of the ones that I've met from your era, Alan, have been very, very nice people. It's amazing the assemblage of talent you had at TSR, and there's really few assholes. It's really pretty much a really nice bunch of guys, even to this day. But do you remember the night I was talking about? Do you remember this night? Yeah.
And one of the things I used to run a convention in Birmingham back when I had a game store as well, and it takes actually running a convention to appreciate what all of the other conventions do for you. So I make it a point at conventions to try to appreciate the staff and make sure they know that I do appreciate the work they're putting in.
And Angelia will know this too. Running a convention it's all about love of the game. You're not making money off this at all. You're not making money. No. It's about just having fun and there's a few fringe benefits. Right now, if I want to talk to Alan, I just get on Facebook and go, "Hey, what's up?" So that's kind of cool that you get to know people. But there is so much work involved, and really so little kickback in terms of what you get out of it, that you just really have to love gaming and love running convention. Love the whole, just setting the whole thing up, and then you get there and everybody's having fun at your convention, and that's really what keeps you, gets you all excited, is that these guys are having fun at the convention that I helped set up, and that's really what keeps you going more than anything else.
Right. And the chance to experience new things, new games and things. There was a time when I was first starting, I joined TSR in 1978. At that point, we were about to lose the capability. But before that, as a gamer, I had been able to keep up with the entire gaming hobby. The schedule of releases for Avalon Hill and SPI were regular enough and uncommon enough that everybody who was in the hobby could see everything that was coming out in a year. And we were just around 77, 78, beginning to see the explosion of other companies. Game Designers Workshop and SPI had been around for a while. And my goodness, it became literally impossible at that point to say, yes, I have played and can intelligently converse about every game in the hobby. And now it's amazingly wide. And my point is that at conventions, one of the things I do try to do every con is to try to play at least one new game that I haven't played before, that rules. Right. So like to experience that.
And if you're going to do it, that's the place to do it. The people expect new players at their convention games. And North Texas is where I got to play test the new Top Secret with Merle Rasmussen, and it was.
Oh, he's one of the rude guys you were talking about, Eric.
Oh yeah, well,
we all know this is the perfect gentleman.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. You want to write down the name of the assholes on here? No, I'm just kidding. Would never do that. Would never do that.
Get to you, so.
Never do that. No, I don't want to get in trouble. They're all great. All great guys. All great guys.
Yeah, Merle is a lot of fun, and really, if not for running into Merle at a Gary Con, I probably wouldn't be doing cons. It was he anymore. I'd saved up my money to go to that one to see a bunch of old friends, Mike Carr and some of the others, and he was having drinks with or talking to this guy who had this wacky idea about a new TSR and doing a new version of Top Secret, and Merle wanted me to be in on it and team up again with him, and I enjoyed the heck out of working with Merle the first time, and so I agreed to that. And later at that con, this guy Alex found me and told me about his con, and so that's the kind of thing. And I told him, I said, well, I don't know if I can afford to come up there and do this. And he said, well, we might be able to give you a room, you can share. And I went, really? Okay. How many games do you want me to run for you?
Well, in North Texas, Doug does say, Doug probably did you just get a phone call? Like, hey, this is a guy, Doug. And because he will just cold call people. I think he cold called Errol, which probably was a hilarious conversation because Errol does not like strangers calling him. So that was probably a hilarious phone call. But so did Doug just cold call you for North Texas, or?
I believe that Bill Meinhardt had come to Gamehole or to GaryCon and was showing me all of the stuff that he had collected of mine, and he said, "There's this convention down in Texas that you really ought to try." And I said, if you get the organizers to invite me, I'll certainly see if we can work it in. And as soon as he did, I went, yes, I'll work it in. That sounds great.
Well, by the way, and I don't know if I'm breaking news to you, but you are invited as a special guest to the con this year. Doug and I talked the other day, and he was like, well, of course, Doug Allen's a special guest. Because I said, well, we haven't talked to you about it. He goes, Allen's always a special guest. Yes, he's a special guest. Tell him he's a special guest. Okay, he's a special guest. So if you want to come, we'll have you down. So
hey, breaking news on Talking Crit. Yes,
if you had your shots.
I've had my first of 2 shots, and
all right, good deal
for the follow up. So yes, I'm in that age group. So.
That's okay. We'd love to have you down this year. Hopefully, you can make it to North Texas this year. We're planning on having a con, and
that sounds like great fun. Yes, I would love to be there.
Well, another reason for me to show up. I get my.
I'm in
the health category. I get my shot next Tuesday. I'm in that health category. I click off a couple of check boxes on the list. So thank you for 2020 for being a crappy year, but then again, hey, we're getting a bunch of questions for Alan.
Yeah, let's get Alan to answer some questions.
Like serious questions.
Yes. So from Shantar, and Shantar's he's a regular with us. Going from 70s to now, do you feel board games or RPGs have changed in a way that you don't recognize them anymore in regards to what they offer? Like, are some driven in a direction that no longer resembles how games would have been played at the earlier conventions of yesteryear, or is the atmosphere the same amount of craziness, and that cons don't seem any different after 40 years?
I would. Board games are a lot more. There are many more of them that are open to beginners and teachable to people of any background. You don't have to be. The old Avalon Hill War Games, if you played Avalon Hill War Games and SPI War Games, you could pick up another one fairly quickly and maybe play that at a convention. If you did not, it was going to teach a new person an hour and a half just to teach about hex movement and zone of control and concepts like that. Nowadays, and I love this, I've also, my time scale has gotten to where I appreciate games that finish in 4 hours or less. I'm not interested often in games that last 12 to 18 hours or
yep.
Like some of my friends who play World in Flames, the World War II game, which lasts longer than the war itself.
Oh
God. But I'm not into that anymore. As far as RPGs, thinking back, some of the huge Gen Con Open tournaments that I both played in and refereed in have the same kind of franticness and massive coordination that, say, an Adventurers League type of thing would have today, where you have a few supervisors and perhaps 20 to 30 to 40 game masters running simultaneously. That's pretty massive. The evolution is that I'm not so happy to see is the perhaps oversensitivity of some players. I never really wanted to call orcs and elves races. I think they were species, but I don't think it's racist to call a fictional species evil. I just don't.
Right.
I don't have a problem with it. Interestingly, in my games and in others, some of the times I will have players break into an orc camp, and one of the rooms they'll find will be the room of orc mothers and children.
Ooh, nature versus nurture. This is an alignment test. You guys are going to have to think your way out of it. I don't want anybody. I don't let things offend me very often, and I try not to.
Well, especially in fictional games, where Eric and I have kind of the same opinion in that regard. That it's your game, however you want to play your game. If you want orcs to be evil, fine. If you want them to not be evil, we don't care. I mean, whatever you want your game to be, that's what you make your game. So, yeah, that's
my orcs aren't evil; they're just bipolar.
Well, that describes a good portion of the real world, then, doesn't it?
Okay, I see a question from John Miller about Top Secret. The interesting things is that it dates back so long that Merle was not an employee of the company when the correspondence started. Yeah. He sent us the typed manuscript, which he can tell the story of paying someone to type it for him. And when we need more on this section, we need more on this section, we need corrections on this section, and that would be me typing out, suggested corrections to him, pages and pages. I'd send him 10 pages, and Merle Overkill Rasmussen would send me 20 or 30 pages back. Merle kept a lot of that material because he was a librarian and archivist at heart. And I know that he got to use some of it in future expansions and things of Top Secret, and some of it not so much. But you can talk to him about that in a future episode. Some of the surprising things about original Top Secret may be that the first, not the module that was included in the game, but the one of the supplements, TS-002, Rapid Strike, involved a halo jump on a cruise ship to not take out terrorists who had taken the cruise ship hostage. The ship that was used to get plans for this, Mike Carr had sent off to a travel agency that specialized in those kind of bookings, because that's the way we did research back then, by mail, when we couldn't get to a library. And he got back the plans of a cruise ship. It was called the Achille Lauro. Now, the Achille Lauro, in real life, later was attacked by terrorists, was hijacked by terrorists, and in fact had a murder, a death on, in the cause of that. So that was, that was part of it. There are some Easter eggs hidden in the original Top Secret. Since I knew the artist, Darlene, who had done some of the fill-in work, I had asked her, in those days when you sorry to diverge, when you are doing editing and doing paste up, you estimate column inches, and then you go, okay, this section's going to end, and we've got 1.5 inches on that page. And so we say, can you do an illustration that's 2 columns by 1.5 inches, or 1 column by 1.5 inches? And so we got TS-003, I'm corrected, Lady in Distress. So anyway, we have, I say, okay, we've got this space, Darlene, we need a fill-in drawing. I've got this photo of somebody I liked in a TV show called The Avengers. It's Diana Rigg. Can you do something based on this photo? And she did a beautiful job. And I said, because I really, really, really like Diana Rigg because she was so cool in this. Could you put a ring with my initials on it? So in that, Diana Rigg in the Peel is wearing a ring with my initials on it.
Oh, wow.
In the original Top Secret.
Did not know this.
So
hidden facts.
Yes.
Yeah. There were other Easter eggs. I mean, Sutherland was known for Dave Sutherland, the primary staff artist, as in the only one who showed up to work every day for a long time when I was hired in 1978, because Dave Trampier would wander in when he wanted to, pretty much. And anyway, he would fill in tiny details like the wizard's hat illustrations. You would have a star and a moon and perhaps a biplane for the Fight in the Skies game that he and Mike Carr enjoyed. But because you often did the illustration in like a much larger size, you could put in the details and it would be shrunk to fit the space that was actually being published. So you could draw it larger and then reduce it, but you could work more details in that way.
Wow.
I always thought that you could tell that Merle had a lot of extra stuff, because I think for the first year or so after Top Secret was published, he had a letters to the administrator column every issue of Dragon magazine that had new rules in it or new weapons or something. So to me, it always looked like a bunch of stuff that had been left out of the original rules.
I'm putting words in his mouth, but it was something like, I typed this, and by hook or by crook, I will get it published.
Well, he did eventually. I think he packaged them all as Dragon magazine articles over the next few years or so.
Yeah, my history with the Top Secret game was I got in trouble for playing that during lab, because we had lab was a double period, and we usually finished our lab in the first period. So we started playing Top Secret in the second period, and the teacher came over and was like, "What the? Are you gambling?" We had those, the horrible dice that cracked real quickly. They started looking like the marble that we were playing on in the lab room. And we're like, "No, we're playing Top Secret." And he looks at it and he's like, "You know what? I don't really want to know. Are you done with your?" We were always, like I said, we were done in 20 minutes because we wanted time to game. We wanted time to play Top Secret. And he didn't find it. I was like, just keep it quiet and don't annoy anybody else. We're like, all right.
Sir, we were dealing with the fate of the free world. If we need to play.
Yeah. Come on.
Well, I've got a Top Secret story too. So this was probably in 1984, so 85. My family had moved down to South Texas, and my father and I were still up in North Texas. I was going to college up there. And so when I would go home for the holidays, I'd always bring a game to play. It was just different things, sometimes Call of Cthulhu, whatever. So one year I brought Top Secret, the original box. So I stuck it in my luggage. All I brought was a carry-on, and went down there and we played Top Secret. And so on the way back, my luggage is going through the little machine, and I'm off to the side or something. And so I see him, they go to my suitcase, the guy unzips it, he opens it up, he's looking at it, he calls another guy over there, they comes and looks at it, and they both look at it, they call a couple other guys over there. I'm like, they're looking at my dirty underwear. I mean, what is there to look at in there? I didn't make any sense. And then I'm starting to panic thinking, this is South Texas. What if somebody stuck a bag of marijuana in there's something, one of those cases where somebody stuck something in my bag or whatever. And if I said, you come on over here, come here. And I was like, holy crap. So I went over there. And they said, what is this? What is this right here? And I look, and it's the cover of Top Secret. It says Top Secret. And if you remember, the cover had like a gun on the cover and a passport. Yeah. And so I guess all I can think is the gate agent opened it up, saw Top Secret, and could not figure out what it was. Because, back then, we're talking the 80s, role-playing games weren't really a part of our consciousness as they are now. And this guy probably had no clue what it was, because it wasn't a book. It was a box and it said Top Secret across the top. And so I just kind of laughed, and they all kind of bristled up like he's making a joke with this. I said, "Oh, it's just a game." And I lifted off the lid, and they saw dice and this, that, and they all kind of went, "Oh, okay." They didn't know what kind of game it was, but once I revealed it was a game, they all, because they were kind of like, they were airport rent-a-cops. They thought they were going to bust this guy seeking top secret information. But that's an absolutely true story. And they were just like, a game, okay. And so they're kind of embarrassed. They just shut it and zipped it. So, okay, here you go. You go through.
It's probably a good thing they didn't get to the module or the where we as officiously as possible use the language about do not accept from courier if seal is broken.
Oh yeah, that's right on the cover. No, but that was my top secret story where I was, and the funny thing is, Alan, I have heard variations of that story over the years. I know my story is true, so not doubting any of my fellow gamers, that must have happened more than once. Where I've heard the story where somebody said that they were looking through luggage and they saw the top secret game. So it happened to other people also, where people saw the game and mistook the logo top secret for this is something top secret, this guy's luggage. So that or they're copying my story. I don't know, because
my luggage has only been opened, including my carry-on luggage, only for my dice bag. Apparently it shows up odd, all these shapes show up very strange in there, and they like to figure that out. But of course the key top secret story that a lot of people know during development in Lake Geneva, when the FBI got involved, there was a play test of a kind of inter TSR play test, and at that time we were divided. We had the buildings in the hotel downtown, the original house, and Sheridan Springs was just starting to open up. And so the players were somewhat scattered, and we had a courier. Brian Bloom was the administrator of the game, and he would come down and pick up orders that we would write out and take them to his desk and figure out where, and these were all very general things, and then he would figure out which conflicted, which interacted, and which generated something interesting. I was the head of the Russian, or co-head of, I was at least the head of KGB. And there was a particular non-player character called Mr. Weatherby that had gotten under the Russian skin for a while. And so, being the typical KGB of the Cold War, I said, we need to have him eliminated. And so I sent orders to my Syrian proxy to, remove this troublesome, man. And somehow my order got dropped by Brian. I'm fairly sure it was by Brian, on the streets of Lake Geneva.
Oh boy!
Somebody picked it up, was sure that there was a Russian spy band operating out of the country, and reported it to the FBI. To their credit, I don't think they were ever seriously thought, that there was a Russian spy band in Lake Geneva. But doing due diligence, which they're supposed to do, they did send a few people to TSR. We showed them the game in development and all that. And it was very exciting.
Wasn't quite as bad as when the FBI shut down Steve Jackson games.
That's right. Yeah.
Was that the Cyberpunk game that they just completely shut it down because they were sure they were trying to do something really nefarious there? So not quite as bad as that.
Well, Steve was always one step ahead. If you got a game like Cyberpunk, you figured out how to hide the stuff before the authorities get there.
John Miller has a question for you, Alan. Merle Rasmussen created a flowchart for play of Top Secret that was cut from the published version. Was this flowchart cut for space or because of design reasons? And apparently, the flowchart is even mentioned by John Peterson in his new book, The Elusive Shift, as an example of story-based design.
Yeah, I've actually seen a few scans of those relevant pages, and there's nothing like Peterson for getting into the details of something. He's a great historian. The flowchart was cut because it took up too much space, and we thought that it was not open-ended enough. We thought that by putting a flowchart like that, again, we're talking 1978. Not everybody is as aware of computers and the way programming works as they are now. It's a different world. We thought that it would confuse some people into thinking these were the only options that you have. It's like giving someone the introductory module to Dungeons and Dragons, but not telling them how to create their own adventures. It would be we thought that it might dead end for some people, but also publishing space was at a premium in those days. You had to do the way offset printing was set up. You tried to do in multiples of 32 pages, and so a 64-page booklet is a double 32. This 32 can be, the sheets that were printed, folded and folded again, and cut appropriately, and then stapled. But so your space limitation is very tight. His chart would have taken up 3/4 of a page to a full page, and we just didn't have the room. We thought there were other things other goodness that needed to be explored.
That makes sense. And I'll tell you what's interesting. You mentioned that, and I'll tell you something. I don't know if a lot of people remember this from the early days, but when D&D was coming out, if you didn't live in Lake Geneva or the Midwest, you had no idea what it was. We were from Texas. We didn't have conventions where they played D&D. So when we would write D&D modules, the first ones we'd write, they looked exactly like B1, Search for the Unknown, B2, Caves of Chaos, S1, Tomb of Horrors, because that's the only examples we have. So I think you're correct. I think that would have stifled design because everything would have tried to look like everything else. You wouldn't have had a lot of varied items because that's what everybody would do. And not only that, you would go to game clubs where people would be running their own games back in the day, and everybody else's adventures there all look like B1 also, and they all look like T1 Village of Hamlet because that's what they had to go by, and they'd look at that and they'd pretty much make a copy of that. Nowadays, it's so amazing. And Eric and I talk about this a lot. Just the fact that we don't have a lot of common touchstones in gaming like we did back then. Because back then, if you went to a convention, say in 84, 85, you could have a whole thing. You go, hey, how'd your group do in S1 Tomb of Horrors? And everybody there had played it. They all had played it, right, and they all had a story. Or T1, hey, would you go to T1 Village of Hamlet? Did you rob all the villagers and kill them all? They'd all know that. Nowadays, you don't have those touchstones. There's so much material available that I see some of the stuff I see now is very imaginative. I don't see a lot of stuff that copies or apes a lot of the older material just because there's so much more out there in terms of being inspirational. There's so much more inspiration out there than there was at the time.
Yeah, and the people that have seen my campaign world go, hey, those names look awfully familiar. Well, of course they do. They're from the fantasy series that I was reading. I took place names from 3 fantasy series, including Witch World, and crammed them into the map that I created of my world, which was conveniently the size of one large poster hex map. It's
right.
amazing how things work out to practicality when you're
right,
a DM. So. Like the size of one level of dungeon is one graph piece.
We used to always, that was one thing when we were kids. We used to always talk about, especially when we ended up finally getting T1 through 4 Temple of Elemental Evil. a friend of mine had the famous quote to this day we still give him a hard time about, was that did Frank only have one sheet of graph paper for every level? Because that dungeon fills up an entire piece of graph paper perfectly. And so we always used to give Frank a hard time about that. Like, what, you just had one sheet of graph paper and you had to fill up the entire sheet, and that's what you did for every level of that dungeon.
Well, believe it or not, as a high school student, graph paper wasn't cheap either.
Right. I was gonna say that. I mean, with us, you filled in almost every box on that sheet of graph paper when you were designing your own dungeons because it wasn't cheap. You got a book of graph paper, and now maybe that was if your allowance was a couple of bucks, that might have been half your allowance to get a new book of it. And the DM had to have graph paper, and the players had to have graph paper. So every adventure was using up at least 2 sheets.
So when I went to university and was working on my chemistry degree, I discovered that I had to have compressed logarithmic type graph paper for some of the work that I was doing in chemistry, and I hit upon the idea of having dungeons that were I wasn't the only one, but when I first introduced multiple page dungeons that were one level, that in essence they had to take their sheets of paper that they were mapping on and try to figure out how they piecemeal went together like this. And of course, I would throw in rotating rooms and sloping passages. So we had, I mean, in the original games, getting out you could die from getting into a dungeon and not getting out, just not finding the way out. So these are things that, in today's world, game doesn't happen quite so often. They treat you a bit more kindly.
Not only that, you've got the graph paper that's like this big now, so you got mega dungeons out the wazoo because you've really got a lot of place to draw them now.
But the cute thing was, because we had my players were clever. If they saw me turn a page behind a screen, they'd go, okay, we're going to maybe a different level or going off here. But if I'm using the logarithmic paper, I'll have them map to the edge, and I say, no, keep going. But he didn't turn a page, and that confused them because they had gotten used to thinking, okay, I can tell by the end of the sheet that we are near the end of this.
Yeah, they were metagaming. They were taking your real world actions and how does that translate to the game?
I mean, I'm not even sure some of it was conscious.
No, I'm sure it wasn't. But it's learned.
Sure.
Al, William has a question for you. The Top Secret Handbook has drawings of what looks to be the Mad Merc floating island. Did he get bumped out for as the first mission by? I'm going to try to get this right. My German sucks. Sprechen. All right.
My German teacher used the Bavarian accent, so I say "ich" instead of "it."
Yeah, that was the whole thing in college. Is it Hochdeutsch? It's like, oh, jeez.
Exactly.
No.
Yes. And yes, we decided that the Sprechen-Halten-Stelle setting had more options for a trainee mission than the Mad Merc did, and that's why there's a reason they pay editors. That's why.
Well, Mad Merc was eventually published too in a Dragon magazine. It was but it was sort of a James Bond supervillain hideout, so that might have not been probably the best adventure for a beginning top secret adventure.
There was also one of Bill's friends and a very he developed this with very small parties, or one agent or 2 agents, or possibly 3 at most, and so it's one of the things that doesn't necessarily translate to a larger without a large amount of rework. And we had a publication date we were shooting for by then, so we had to make it the best we could in the time that we had.
Well, Sprechen-Halten-Stelle also is I played that many times over the years. It was great because it was kind of like kind of like a B1 for Top Secret. There's all these different areas. Some didn't relate to the other one. Just all these different things were happening all over the map. Sometimes they were connected. Sometimes they didn't. There was an underground. You go into the sewer tunnels. There was an above ground. You go on the roofs. And so it was kind of fun. You could just kind of go anywhere there and just kind of and pretty much make your own adventure. You never knew what you were going to run into.
I link Sprechen, I'll just sell it to the new Top Secret New World Order in that I think, re-emphasized the tradecraft operations, the skills that you have to do, like being able to pass dead drops and assess an asset if you're thinking about turning them and things like that. One of the shows that I like to point to for inspiration was called Spooks in the UK. It's MI5 here. If you get a chance, watch them. It's like 24 on steroids. But these people, the MI5 people, do outstanding tradecraft. I mean, they are really good at what they do, and things still go to hell. I mean, that's real life, because we know what real life does to your plans, to battle against. So I enjoy that.
Well, we didn't have. Well, I'm trying to think of some U.S. shows. I know Man from U.N.C.L.E. was obviously kind of influenced, but one of the things we used to do when we played Top Secret was we had a very Mission Impossible aspect when I would write adventures, and that all the players had a stable of adventures, and I'd say, okay, here's what you're going to do. Which one of your guys you choose? So one guy, I'm going to choose the disguise guy. I'm going to choose this, that, but it would be based on what the adventure was. So I kind of came at it more of a Mission Impossible viewpoint. Was there what were the big influences you think of Top Secret in terms of television, movies?
Yeah, and Merle, emphasizes that he in both versions of the game, the archetypes are important, and I still reckon, if you have a party of all shooters, you're not going to do as well as if you have somebody who's a hacker and somebody who's a face, for talking with people. I mean, everybody gets to do some shooting, but you got to need some people to do that part too in most teams. So you do need to do the Mission Impossible sort of assembling the team, kind of thing. Of course, I was a huge fan of that. And the Man from U.N.C.L.E. was a great influence. The James Bond movies, the Our Man Flint movies were awesome. Most of them were trying to have fun with it. Mission Impossible played it straight, but I loved whenever they were going to the People's Republic of Sokovia or whatever Balkan nation they were going to, and that incredibly versatile actor Martin Landau could speak Sokovian, whatever.
Well, you gotta always speak Sokovian.
Well, I think one time the Mission Impossible, it might have been one of the Sokovian ones. I mean, I don't know what the country was either, but they were a circus. They were big people in a circus, and they had one guy was a strong man. They had I don't know.
Peter Lupus's role. I mean, he was
Peter Lupus. Yeah,
his photograph was holding the waist up. He was the circus man. So he finally said, "Can I please get a show where I get to do what I'm good at?"
He was the underrated part of the team. He was the Lupus character.
Well, of course, my engineering aptitude, I was always a fan of Barney, the most overworked and underappreciated.
Whenever they needed something, it's like, Barney, could you make us a 3-pronged satellite dish that doesn't It's like, yeah, he looks around the room, he finds he's working on it.
And can you wiggle into this 18-inch ventilation shaft to operate the remote while you're doing that?
Yes, now, actually, Alan, did you ever see the Mission Impossible reboot, which I thought was really good? I think it was in the 90s. And he played the same character, another actor played his son, if I believe.
Right, his son was on there. I did see that.
Yeah, that was actually pretty good. I liked the reboot quite a bit. I don't even know if you can even find that anymore. I don't think it lasted a season.
Short-lived. But no, give MI5 a shot. If
I will
you
check that out.
Adrenaline, type shows, and it's also one of these shows that pre Game of Thrones was not afraid to have somebody, featured on the headline credits and offed in the first 2 minutes of the show, so they could kill a character that you liked, instantly. So
wow. And that makes it special and makes the series realistic. Now, my question is, can you find the originals on demand anywhere?
I think that you can start getting them. It might be BritBox.
Okay.
Has some. It's hard for me to keep up which is on which streaming service now, because some of the seasons might be some places and some of them.
Yeah, it becomes weird how the licensing happens.
Yeah. So BritBox or Acorn. If it's not one, it's probably the other.
Well, I'm surprised to find out that the Mission Impossible reboot lasted 2 seasons, 35 entire episodes. I can't remember. I don't think I saw them all. I'm gonna have to look for this DVD. It came out in 88, 89. It also starred Peter Graves, and he came back in Israel. So I'm going to have to look for this. Phil Morris was there as Barney, and so I think I'm going to have to look for that DVD. I want to see that again. Now, being in '88, it's as dated as anything probably 30 years old is going to be, but it should be fun to rewatch that.
Right. I'm going to give you this calculator size thing that can do.
Yeah. Could you fix this computer and it's as big as a briefcase over here, large briefcase.
A magnetic tape spinning.
Do you have the punch cards necessary to break in? Yes.
I actually have that skill. Talk about your plug and whip skill. So
really,
yeah.
Damn. All right. So, but some of them do hold up. I mean, I think Secret Agent Man.
That's a good one. I was thinking about that too. That was a very good.
And the Prisoner.
Really, and the Prisoner, man. I binge watched that back in I think last January. I was up to like 3 o'clock at night, like 2 nights in a row, going, I can't stop watching. I can't stop watching. It's like it was trippy. And then I went back and started catching Secret Agent Man, and I was like, you can see it's the same character moved on. I was like, wow, this is really and Secret Agent Man, it's some really good plot lines, really good storylines.
If you're watching Secret Agent Man, go ahead and watch the Avengers. The
Avengers is great too. The original Avengers, really good.
Yeah, Mrs. Peel and Steed, or even before that, his partner was Kathy Gale, who later became known as Pussy Galore.
Yes.
And so she's actually the one that invented the, kick-ass leather catsuit kind of sidekick woman. They were very ahead of their time in women's lib. Excellent models. For females, but I enjoyed it for the humor. I mean, that was a show that could, get you laughing. We all watched Get Smart too, the original.
Oh, yeah. Oh my God.
Now we're not going to take a lot of stuff directly, but the hilarious thing, my son, who does run us through New Top Secret, talks about our shoe phones, because even though there's an earpiece in here, the body of it's in the shoe.
Yeah, when I was an active sergeant, and I had to discuss topics that might be, I don't know, delicate topics, I would always tell my staff, a bunch of detectives, and say, "Listen, I'm lowering the cone of silence." And everybody knew what it was except for my one detective. She was born in Haiti, and she's like, "Sarge, the cone of silence?" And then another was like, hey, you don't know Get Smart. Listen, basically whatever's said in this room
then you have
stays in this room.
Yeah.
Nobody hears. Yeah. The whole thing. they're silent. Yeah. But I was like, yeah, it's like, oh, okay, now I understand. She's like, what's that? It's from Get Smart, and you couldn't find it for years. I actually have a, oh my God, I guess from eBay, probably like at least 20 years ago, a bootleg, dare I say it, a bootleg copy of the Get Smart series that was aired on Canadian television, and then somebody ripped it off the TV and burned it onto CDRs.
Is this before they had DVDs, or what the hell were you doing? Good Lord.
Yeah, so I don't even think my Xbox would play it.
On a podcast to having any bootleg copies of anything. But
listen, it just appeared one day. I don't know exactly what happened. But
the cone of silence was funny because you could see the edge of it, and there was nothing under, I mean, obviously the sound doesn't stop at the edge.
Well, we can't go all the way down, Chief, because then we couldn't breathe.
Oh goodness. So yeah, lots of wonderful shows to give us inspiration on that. And even today, I mean, if I read or listen to an audiobook, Tom Clancy or something, I'll be taking notes for a future mission for that I'll inflict on our players.
Now, you after you left, what year did you leave TSR, Alan?
I was there at TSR from 1978 until 1983.
So big chunk a big chunk was between there and probably doing cons. What did you do in that in between period?
I went back to I wrote a little freelance for Mayfair. Got one product started at least, but then I decided if I was going to be unemployed, I was going to be unemployed somewhere warm. I moved back and started a game store, but then I knocked out a couple of actually 3 books for Mayfair, Fantastic Treasures.
And those are actually really good books. I absolutely forgot you wrote those.
Fantastic Treasures too.
Yeah,
they used clever marketing. I thought they got Boris Vallejo
Boris covers
for beautiful art, and what they were magic items that your players don't know and haven't memorized. So because that was a real problem. I mean, there's you were talking about metagaming. Even with the advent of the DMG and the Monster Manual and Monster Manual 2 and the Theme Folio, you're still at a point where people will go, oh, that is a Death Knight and its weakness is da-da-da, da-da-da, da-da-da. And they go, that's a magic sword. Well, let's see it, pick it up and see if it turns into, I go, flame on, nothing happens. I go, fly, dance, and nothing happens. And I go, you pick up one of my swords, you don't know what's going to happen. They're taken from mythology. And the cool thing about weapons that belong to gods or belong to heroes in mythology is that they're going to want them back.
Yeah.
You found their sword or their hammer. What are you doing with my hammer? Says Thor. So that should provide some interesting role-playing experiences.
So what did you? So did you ever have to go back to the real world and get a real world job?
I thought we'd say yes. Running,
or were you just
running a game and bookstore is pretty darn real.
It is. It really is.
You find that you have less time to read. You have less time to play games. Because you're running the Lincoln store. I tried the convention route for a while where we would pack up stuff in a van and drive to local conventions and sell in a booth for 3 or 4 days. And that will wear you out over a season or 2.
Oh,
as you guys both well know.
It's a young man's game. I will.
It really is.
Yep.
And after that, when I decided that wasn't going to help put our kids through college, I went to selling computers because I had worked with computers, as I said, back in the key punch and paper tape days, as a summer job at the university downtown. I didn't really have a lot of summers as a kid. I was working most summers, but anyway, I got hired as a store that sold both Macs and PCs during the day, because that was possible back then. Tells you how long ago it was. Back in 1983, 84. From that, became the manager of information systems for a company and took over all their IT stuff. And that was a company that made explosives for coal miners. It was a
okay.
It was a lot of fun. After that, went through a couple of jobs and decided that I wanted a job where the odds of a layoff like what happened at TSR would be minimized. And so I got into county government using my chemistry degree at a wastewater treatment laboratory, where we analyze the stuff from the sewers to make sure, the sewer treatment plants, to make sure that they're doing their job before it's sent back into the rivers. And I was there a full year before they said, hey, you know more about computers than the guy we got doing computers. So then I got moved into the computer end of that. And that's where I've been ever since. And I decided to get the degree to go along with it. I've got a master's in computer science. And so I am now a systems analyst with our county. And at least for another 10 months.
Retirement beckons, eh?
There is a clock ticking, yeah.
It's a beautiful clock.
Well, that's the sweet retirement, sweet city retirement or county retirement money. Yes, definitely.
Right.
Well, I remember when you, so one of the first things that I remember you selling when you first kind of came back into gaming existence was Night of the Six Swords.
Night of the Black Swords.
Not the Black Swords. I'm sorry. So what was the genesis of that? Is that something that's been around for a while, or something you wrote?
Well, yes, and no. I went to that first GaryCon again. It changed a lot of my future life. When I went into the dealer's room, I went around and talked to people. I mean, I knew some of them I knew Lou Zaki from back when I was going to Gen Cons, and then when I got into the game business, I used him as an initial distributor. But I talked to everybody there, and I talked to Devin Hibbs, who had a booth there and was very polite and said he was a big fan of my work and would I consider printing something that I had written before or writing something new. And I said, well, I couldn't afford it. I mean, printing costs these days are such that if I was to print something out for you, it would be pretty pricey. He said, no, I was going to pay you. I said, okay, I think we can do it.
Oh, okay. Well, that changes things.
I mean, honestly, that was a con trip where I basically got 2 offers of work for something that I hadn't done in a long time. And so it was great. So Night of the Black Swords came to mind. He said, can we just redo something that you already did that didn't get published? I did write a module for a convention. The first convention that had me as a guest after I left TSR was CoastCon in Biloxi. And I wrote a game tournament for them. And I did something with that, to my knowledge, hadn't been done before. Of course, it could have, who knows, but I decided to have the party be Lawful Evil. Almost a lot of parties in my past experience have been lawful good, and then later they branched into various things of neutral and the flavors of good. I said,
yeah, you're being generous.
Do you know? Do you know I'm a generous DM? And
I know.
all my surviving players will tell you that. The Lawful Evil was an interesting category to me because, as I had it explained to me one time, Lawful Evil characters like vampires will always keep their word. You just don't want them to. And so I said, that would be a great party to get together. And so, somewhat like fortuitously, as if Mike didn't know, the Mission Impossible show that we were talking about, I said, what if there was an evil impossible missions force where there was a facilitator who selected various evil individuals, threw them together for specific missions because their talents were suited for it, and sent them on something. And so I had this party group that did not particularly care for each other in the backstories, but had to work together because they were lawful evil, and also because they owed a debt of obligation to a higher, or shall I say lower power. And I took them on a kind of joyride through some of the planes of hell. And the way that has been taken to by players really amuses me. It is probably not something that today's con climate would welcome and cherish, but I had people take that in really surprising directions. And one of the more fun ones was when I had a group of, I think there were 5, and 3 of my players were female, and I hadn't had that mix before. And the one who wanted the anti-paladin, I said, I need to have a conference with you, and took her to the side. And I said, so there might be something a little suggestive here, and this was written for a man. Are you comfortable with this, or would you like me to change it or drop it? And she said, no, let's roll with it. And this is the kind of party I like. And we had a lot of fun, and everybody laughed, and no hurt feelings or anything. So.
Well, I won't name names to protect the guilty or innocent, but I know somebody that played in one of your games, and they said it didn't go well, and they all ended up dying. So I don't know if you remember which session that was, or if that happened in a few sessions. But
I'm sure it's happened with you.
What's that sound? Oh, is it a tiny violin? It's drowning out the tears of my infant.
They said I don't know if they all killed each other or if you killed them, but apparently it didn't work out very well, and they didn't cooperate. They didn't cooperate very well, I guess.
No, game masters do not kill players. Players kill
game. I know. Jim Ward's made some money off that saying. I know. Yes.
And it's true. If you give them the tools, like somebody charms them, and or you give them, or somebody offers you a wish, which is what in this particular case does it. Somebody will give you a wish if you will but turn on your comrades, and they're thinking, I didn't really like them anyway. So a lot of fun role playing.
I remember at I think my last GaryCon, I gave out a magic item to, and I run Swords and Wizardry Light, so it's low level players, but I gave somebody a sword that would heal them back to full hit points whenever a party member character died. But they didn't have to cause it to happen. It just had to happen. But now they were incentivized not to. Oh, so-and-so's in trouble? I've got something more important to do. I'm down. I'm good. I'm down to 2 hit points. I'm good. Oh, look at that. You dropped. Okay, I'm back to. Because I like magic items that have a curse kind of built into it.
Right.
A benefit and a curse. It should be a balance to it. Sometimes the curse, or maybe lesser the quirk, isn't as big, but then maybe the benefit isn't as big. But just generic weapons, generic +1 swords, I find it to be very boring.
I'm playing in a game where we just found a magic belt, and it increases your con and it increases your resistance to poison. And of course, so a number of us are going, great. What's the disadvantage? The disadvantage, it's called a girdle of gluttony. It increases your body mass by 50%, and you consume twice the amount of rations that and we go, oh, the fighters are going, I don't care, give it. So yeah, that's it's always a lot of fun to have a twist like that. But you were talking about the healing thing. D&D has a spell like that, but I've seen people use it perhaps not. What do you mean you're tolling the dead on your own party member? Hey, he's close to dead and I could use the
Just gotta make it work. You gotta just balance. It's all part of the balance, man. It's all part of the balance.
Look. If I can stay up, I'll heal him later.
So what else do you have on your plate? Anything new coming out or to be published in the next year or so? Or are you going to wait till you retire then start hitting that harder?
I'm hoping that I will be able to hit things harder and more energetic when I don't have to wake up at godforsaken early time to be on call for for these things, to administer, to write, to actually have enough coffee at 7 a.m. so that I can write code and debug things and stuff. I have agreed with Paul Stormberg to write one of the upcoming Legends of Wargaming tournaments for him. Nice. And I won't say what tower or Scottish-like named town this might represent. It has nothing to do with any of that material. It's what lies beneath.
So not the ghostly place, maybe the underground ghostly.
It's not the ghostly place. It's not a Scottish place. It's underground.
It's
a ground. It's underground. Yeah, definitely.
And one of the things that got brought up in one of my, and I know he got the idea because he had auctioned some of my original Inverness maps, which were close to mega dungeon size, not the super mega dungeon we did with Gormenghast, but he said there was a lot under there, that never got published. I said, yeah, what got published of Inverness, what even the underground was, tip of the iceberg, still 75%. And he said, let's do something with that. And I said, okay, I think we could do that. So
great.
I'll be retro gaming it back to 1E for that.
Ooh, very cool.
Yeah, because that's of course the way that Paul rolls in his tournaments there too. He is another great historian of the game, and if you never get the chance, please come to Gary Con to his Legends of Wargaming, both the history room where he has paintings and artifacts and things of early gaming days, and also he'll have games from the original feel of things, like a sand table to play miniatures on, and the chainmail joust game with the coconuts and fun stuff like that. He made me an offer I couldn't refuse, and recreated and built some Boot Hill scenery in 40 millimeter for the original 40 millimeter Elastilin figures that we have. So think about it, miniatures you can actually see,
Wow. Yeah, my eyes are getting old.
Yeah,
I can't see them anymore.
We were set up. We did the Swords and Wizardry light game. Eric and I, the year we did it at GaryCon, we were set up right in front of the Legends of Wargaming room. Remember, it was right behind us, and so I got to walk around there and see some of the original stuff being played. And it's really cool because they have a lot of the. I mean, the older guys, I mean, the really older guys that were there when the game first started, they were there, running some games. And he always has his Siege of the Moat House, which is pretty cool. I think I don't know if he said he retired that or not. He might have retired that, but I know
that he rotates, the Bodenberg and
Bodenberg, yeah,
and some of some of the other classic miniature scenarios, and those are a lot of fun. And those are games where people say, well, this looks complicated, and he goes, no, you come in, you can ask me what to do, or one of your friends.
Sure. Yeah, we'll figure it out.
You can move 4 inches, and the horses can move 12 inches. So move where you want to, and then we'll roll dice. So, it's a lot of fun. But I mean, that was the first time I had seen Dave Sutherland's Dungeon Master's Guide cover painting in its entirety for a long, long time.
Oh, really?
Had that on display there. So
yeah,
beautiful. I peeked into that room a couple of times, but I never had time to actually peruse it. Because it always, I think that room closed not early, but it closed up. Security was once somebody working, they had to close it.
Well, not only that, and they have to close it when they're not there because so much really valuable stuff there. But it's tight when there's a lot of games, a lot of people standing around, and we're hoping that they can arrange it with a little more space next year. But it's a lot of fun, and whenever we get back to live Gary Cons, I'm going to be live boot hilling. So.
This pandemic has been a pain. My last convention, my only convention last year was TotalCon. By the way, we lost it. It might be the snowstorm and cold has finally taken out the internet at the warehouse. No, Mike is back. Oh, okay. I thought
we had a power. Well, we just had a power flutter.
Oh, come on! Yeah. The police got a 911 call.
It went out. I mean, if that's the worst power we get, I'm happy because it went off for like 1 second. So that was not bad. It was as bad as some of the people we have here. So sorry about this.
When you look at the recording, I didn't mean it, Mike. All those things.
Yes.
When I look back and see it,
we said nothing bad about.
You didn't have enough time to say anything bad. I wasn't even gone a minute. But good Lord.
Yeah,
we were trying, man. We were trying.
Had more crimes than.
I should have. I could have delayed bringing you back in.
Okay. That's true.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, we were being nice.
Well,
being nice.
Did we have any news we need to get to tonight, or do you just want to continue talking to Alan about our the good old days and this and that, or do you want to talk about anything that happens recently, or?
No, I mean, listen. Any of the news that we can touch on, I'll mention it and figure you'll hear about it next week. The One Ring Kickstarter second edition broke $1 million already. Holy crap! And I recently found out that Fantasy Grounds has AD&D 2E rule set and the 2E core books available for sale, licensed from Wizards of the Coast.
Well,
so you can actually, yes, but we'll talk about that when we don't have an exciting special guest. That's a teaser for next week.
And real quick, Chris Clark, who's another guest at TotalCon, just started his Kickstarter, Inner City. I had it up on my computer. My computer went off. In Inner City Redo, which is a 70s cop drama RPG that he wrote about 40 years ago, and he's running a brand new version. And so check out Inner City Redo on Kickstarter. And I gave it $20. I think Eric dropped 20 on it too. So
24. I got the PDF.
Oh, too, you fancy.
I need the PDF because now that I have my 24 screen right next to my desk, now I can read my PDFs while I sit at my desk, and I can multitask, or at least I can do shit or something like that.
Nice.
We're potty mouth, Alan. I'm sorry, man. I usually drop the F-bomb, but I'm trying to be polite.
I was on that DD Zach show, so listen.
Oh, jeez. Okay. We're sorry about that. We're sorry, Alan. You had to
wait a second. We're going to be on.
We're going to be on Monday, but no, yeah, that's terrible. That's an awful show. I told
Those
Skeeter we're
hacks.
gonna be on there so they can see how two professionals conduct themselves. And,
I wouldn't know where that is.
And roll a D4 for who the professionals are.
Yeah. Eliminate by the process of elimination. Who's the professional? I took a step back. I'm not volunteering to be a professional. That has weight and implications to it. Yeah, it's like.
Well, as professional as we could be. I mean, yeah.
All right.
So I'm gonna say one last plug for TotalCon coming up this weekend. My games are Friday night and Saturday afternoon, and I'm pretty sure at least the Saturday one still has some seats available. So if you go to Tabletop Events and look up TotalCon 35. I don't know why Tabletop Events does it, but if you're not careful, you can end up in past years' conventions.
Oh, no, don't do that. No.
And not find, anyway, 35 is the current one. And if you can't find, my keyword is my name, Hammack, Hammack. And if you can't find me, browse around. There's a ton of great games going on. So support the convention. We need to support all the cons we can. They're wonderful people. All of us love going to cons. As we said before, it's an enormous amount of work, so let's give them some love. So,
yeah, and it's funny because the one thing I'm not going to miss about TotalCon, it has nothing to do with TotalCon, is when they have that what is it on Saturday afternoon, the room with the really cheap games that you have to get into the raffle to get an early ticket, because 2 years ago, Bill Webb and goddamn it Zach got tickets 1 and 3 were the first ones in. Both of them came out with boxes of shite, and then went, "Oh, Eric, you drove." I was like, actually, I think did we get Zach his stuff? I know Bill got his stuff back last year. It was still sitting in my kitchen. I was just like, Rachel's like, "What's this underneath the kitchen table?" I go, "Oh." She's like, "Did you buy all this?" I went, "I didn't." "Oh, wait, that Bill, that belongs to Bill. Bill, I still have your stuff." He's like, "Yeah, bring it back to the next con." I'm like, "Okay, I guess you have room in your luggage this year." But yeah. I'm assuming there's a lot of good stuff every year there, but I've never gotten a ticket that was low enough a number to get the great lootness as was gotten. Mike, you're silent.
No sound on Mike. Okay.
By the time you get there, it's a bunch of Marvel superhero modules, and
you know what? I that wouldn't be bad, man. I never really played much Marvel superheroes. I never owned it. I played it. I never actually owned the rule set. Greg Gillespie has come into the room.
Oh, hello, Dr. Gillespie.
All hair the doctor.
Yes.
If you haven't been following, folks, Greg has been doing live streams on a weekly basis.
Yes.
Does great shows. Mike was even a guest.
I was his first guest.
Yes. Thaddeus Moore was a guest, I believe, last week. So, yes, good stuff. Great talk about old school gaming.
So you know how Eric and I, we just sit here and we spitball and we hex crawl. Greg's an actual professional, and he is a professor of role-playing games, so he actually has a plan going in. So if you want a little more structured talk show, which covers some really interesting territory, check out Greg's. Not on the nights that we broadcast. In that case, check us out first, then watch his later. That's what you need.
Watch him on the replay. Yeah. See, Greg would be AD&D 1E, and we're kind of like the wood grain box.
We're the OTT.
And we
outdoor survival. We're outdoor survival because we're this hex crawl, right? I mean, we're outdoor survival. Yeah.
Well, that's the setting that we're using, and then maybe we have Greyhawk, but we really haven't read through it yet, so we haven't figured out all the broken rules. So we're still trying to figure.
Well, that got me to thinking about a question here, Alan. So I happened to mention outdoor survival. What games did y'all play when y'all were in your off time? Did y'all play D&D, TSR guys, and you're sitting around, works out. You know, you have a couple beers and a pizza. What games did y'all throw out there on the game table?
There weren't many that we could play just for fun because a lot of our time was taken up playtesting the things that were in development, usually each other's stuff. But one of the things that we did do when the Star Trek role-playing game came out, it may have been FASA's.
FASA, yeah.
Tracy Hickman started a campaign, and a number of us went over to play, at least in the initial one. And I got the coveted role of Mr. Spock. And Tracy had an interesting, because he's a great writer. He had an interesting initial segment where the guy playing Kirk was coming to the Enterprise on a shuttlecraft, presumably with some mission that was too important to talk about over the communicators, and so Spock is in charge, and Tracy tells the person playing the navigator that they've got a ping. They have a shuttlecraft, Federation shuttlecraft hailing and approaching, and the navigator says, "Shall I answer, Commander?" And I say, before he can say anything, I say, "It's a Klingon trick. I've seen this before. Lock phasers on that shuttle." And I saw Tracy's eyes get so big because he could see his carefully planned campaign on the very first few minutes of the first night.
Or thinking you're going to go down the toilet.
I suppose it would be logical to let him aboard or to talk to him. And I played this from then on out. As far as war games, we did play Search for the Nile among the design.
Great game back then. Yeah, that's a game that somebody needs to redo. That was actually a really fun game.
Winner had we had to have games that you could play turn-wise or whenever, and also games that didn't involve you being there for other players' turns, because so Steve would have the map on the wall, and if we got a free couple of minutes, we could wander by his cubicle and look at the map and see if it was our turn. And if it was, we'd roll the dice and move our piece and discover another piece of this river, or die in a cataract or whatever, and restart. And so you could see, it was fun to see the game progressing on other parts of the continent where you had to act like you had no idea what was going on, to play ignorant, fog of war type.
So for those that don't know, basically you had this huge map of Africa that's blank, and your different characters, you're like either a doctor or a geologist or explorer. I can't remember all the classes,
right.
but you would have different. So you're exploring Africa, and you go hex by hex, and then you roll on this random chart that just all kinds of things can happen to you. If I remember correctly, you died of disease a lot. Disease, which was true. I mean, disease really got a lot of people.
Hippopotamus charges.
Yeah, hippopotamus, because hippopotamus is the deadliest land mammal.
And when we were first playing the game, we went, "This is ridiculous." And then later on, we look it up and see how it was. It was.
Over 500 people a year die from hippopotamus attacks. So anyway, you would, and so as you cleared out hexes, you would explore what's on the hexes, and you try to find things like doctors would try to find special medicinal herbs. I can't remember. Explorers would try to find like waterfalls. I mean, it was really interesting. Like you said, you could play it solo. Really, you could almost pretty much play it solo. And I had some friends, and we played a summer-long game of it while we weren't doing D&D stuff. And like you said, Alan, you could do parts for the time. Now, I was probably about 16. We played it, so I probably didn't follow the rules exactly. I mean, it was like most Avalon Hill games. It was a little tough. There was some tough spots, but that was a really fun game. Search of the Nile. That would have worked really good as an episodic game, like you said.
Right, and it's one of those things that we could play when you have a spare couple of minutes and you didn't have to have 10 people together around the board at the same 10 minutes. I'm getting a very loaded question from Dandelion Games.
Yes.
Who do I remember being the best DM of the old school?
Uh-oh, here you go. We're putting you on the spot.
Okay, well, there was one guy named Gary that was pretty good.
Nah, that guy.
A hack.
And beyond that, I'd like to keep my friendships. I worked with and helped hire some of the best damn people in all of role playing ever, and I worked with Harold Johnson and Mark Schick and Zeb Cook and Tom Moldbay, and so many others, and Tracy Hickman and Merle Rasmussen and so many, and we had developers and editors, and believe it or not, as a developer and editor, pretty much all of them were going to be DMs too, and they were all darn good. So, no, we were entirely equally skilled, and I've got the graphics to prove it. So
very
there you go.
Diplomatic answer. So, speaking of, kind of along the same vein, so is there a product that you remember reading there when you were, just kind of looking through stuff that you said, wow, this is going to be really, really big someday? And it really was really, really big. Was that top secret, or was there something else like that you kind of looked at and said, wow, this is going to be really good, I think?
Yeah. Top secret had been pretty much almost, the decision had almost been made to take it by the time Gary told Mike Carr to let me look at it. And he basically said, if you two agree, then we'll offer him a contract. And of course I did. I thought it was great. It's going to need a lot of work, and it did. But as far as products that came in, well, there was this young writer that sent in an application to be hired by the name of Tracy Hickman. And
boy, I never heard of him. I wonder if he made it.
I don't know what happened to him or what he's doing today. It's a shame. But what he sent in, what Lawrence Schick sent in for his basic resume was White Plume Mountain. What Tracy Hickman sent in was, I said, this is almost publishable, as it is. And then a little while after he was hired, he came to us with the idea about this multi-series dragon project that involved a magic spear or some word like that. And I still don't want to get into trouble with Wizards because,
I think you can say Dragonlance now. I think you're okay with it.
Lance of a Dragon. And I went, this is great. Oh man, how are we going to get Kevin and Brian to cough up the money to do it? And that was the battle Harold Johnson and I fought, because everybody who looked at it, knew it was a great idea. We just had to find a way to make it work within the guarantees that we were going to be making to Random House Publishing at the time, as far as products and things, and how to try to introduce a 12, series where only one was written right now, but Random House was going to insist we had titles, ISBN numbers, and covers for everything a year in advance, because that's how publishing companies work, is at least a year in advance. So that was a larger challenge logistically than we had faced before. And I'm glad that we were finally able to, push it into existence.
Well, if you ever see that Tracy Hickman kid someday and find out what he's probably a baker or something. I don't know what he does now, but if you ever see him, you might want to
I saw him at some convention in Texas, and he ran this killer breakfast thing.
We actually had him in North Texas too. Yes, we did.
He was killing people left and right. And he came to me, and I said, Tracy, I still have that writing sample you sent in as a resume. And he said, you live this round. And when
we've actually, so that's what nice people Trace Hickman and Margaret Weiss are, is that our little convention of 500 people, Doug contacted one year and said, is there a way you could come out to our convention? And they said, well, we have an appearance fee. We really just can't appear at a lot of conventions, but we'll tell you what, we've heard so many good things about your convention. We'll waive our appearance fee as long as you don't tell people we're going to be there, because that's the whole point of appearance, is basically you're paying an appearance fee so you can get people to come to your convention. And we said, that's no problem. Nobody comes to our con anyway. we got 500 people anyway. We don't care. And so I was in on it, but I would have loved to go back in time and just look at the people, look on people's faces when they walked in and saw Weiss and Hickman there was absolutely just priceless.
Yeah,
because we couldn't advertise that we're going to be there. And so, you walk in this little tiny convention in Texas, 500 people, and there's Trace Hickman, Margaret Weiss sitting there. Everybody's like, holy S. So that was great. We loved having them too. We'd love to have them. We've asked them for back a few times. We might have just, struck lightning that one time and just been really lucky to have them. But that was, they were really nice people, and they probably deserve all the success they've had in the industry. So
Tracy's and Margaret, Margaret's team up with Tracy, and most of her work at TSR was separate from mine and later, but I've known her since when Tracy actually introduced me to her first at a convention in Atlanta, the Atlanta Fantasy Fair, but kind of a predecessor to the, Dragon Con thing. And it was amazingly at this place where you find writers at conventions at the bar. And I was sitting with Tracy talking, and he saw Margaret come in, and he invited her over and asked if I met her. And I said, no, I'm not in person, And Tracy Hickman, the kind, if possibly a bit addle-minded, nice guy, said, Margaret, this is Allen Hammack, the man who taught me how to write. And I went,
oh my!
I am keeping that introduction forever. So,
you wish you got that on tape now, because nobody. Oh, come on, man! Yeah. He didn't really say that, did he?
He is too kind, and an incredible talent. They both are, and both are just such sweet people. And I get to see Margaret, at Gary Cons, and it would be really cool to see them both together again. So.
I will say that one of the reasons we got them there, I kind of forgot this part, and I remembered it, was that was the first year we had Larry Elmore at our convention, and they're just those three are just the best friends ever. And so Larry had already been guaranteed to come, or he was going to come to our convention and sign these art prints that the AKM had done, and I think he tipped him over to come to our convention because Doug had called him, and then Larry said, I'm going to be there. And they're like, oh, well, Larry's there. We're there. So that worked in our favor, having Larry there that year. So
there you go.
It worked out. It's who you know, man. It's really who you know. But
and your convention also gave me a chance to, talking about good DMs, I got to play in an adventure run by Lawrence Schick, when he ran the upside down topsy-turvy, except we were actually the Myconids defending against the invading humans and demi-humans. So that was a lot of fun. I saw a question go by, and I'll quickly answer that. Yes, originally Random House was the distributor for TSR's game products, especially anything that could be done in booklet format. And that was a critical point in TSR's sales and development. And A lot of that went down to the sales staff at the time, Will Niebling and you know, and Jim and JD. Gosh, you know, that was a great deal, but it involved a lot of commitment and turned TSR more professional. So,
not a bad thing.
Yep.
Well, talking about professional, we're about to hit the 2-hour mark.
Wow.
Oh, holy crap. Alan, talking with you like this literally it feels like we're at like North Texas RPG, sitting at the bar. All we're missing is having Bill Webb and a bunch of Frog God fans around us.
I know.
That's usually the conversation that's going on. But this is why I go to cons. This is why I miss cons. I don't go to cons to play games these days because I am no longer able to try to fill my daily con ticket with every slot like I did at my one Gen Con in my first North Texas, which by Saturday night I had no voice and I was like, yeah, gonna pass on the next game. But I like Mike and I, we work the game booths at these cons, and we work them because we enjoy interacting with the community, but also we get to see people like Alan and others from the TSR era and later that we're not going to see otherwise. And that's why having you on this week was very important to Mike and I, and I'm sure a lot of our viewers and listeners, because they get to hear stories about an era that is 40 plus years ago, and you're not going to hear it unless you hear it from the mouth of somebody who was there.
Yeah, and unfortunately, when you're playing a game online, you don't necessarily have an hour or so just to kind of shoot the breeze while you're before or after running the game. I played some online games. It's kind of like after the game's over, everybody's like, "Well, okay, see you later," and they all take off, and it's
when we're doing online conventions, everybody's got the next thing that they need to go to,
right,
and stuff like that. But your experience, Eric, was similar. All of us that have worked booths before know that everybody who's done that, everybody who's in the industry will always come by all the dealers, and you will see everybody there.
Yep.
So yeah,
there's just something very special about that, and it again the world of COVID. It's the elephant in the room. 2020 sucked on many levels, but the icing on the suckage cake was lack of physical conventions,
right,
and the ability to go out and meet people and do that little bro shoulder slap or the handshake or the elbow bump. I assume going forward it's going to be a lot of elbow bumps because virus COVID. But
well,
I
do what.
So I'll take the hug. So
if we get a shot, if we all get our shots before North Texas, I'm going to make out with both of you guys. So
you know what?
You're
gonna have to get past Rachel, and one of two things.
I'll make out with Rachel then. I don't care.
No. Either Rachel will kick your ass, or hold on a second, Mike. Hold on a second. Let me get my phone so I can put this up on YouTube.
Oh boy.
So
whatever. I'm already got pictures of me on YouTube as the devil. That nothing could be worse than that. So I'm not too worried.
There's still video out there that is worse than that.
Ooh, okay.
Anyway,
well, there is video. Yes, you're right. And we'll probably talk about it Monday. Yes.
Anyway, I'm very pleased by the invitation to North Texas. Looking forward to seeing you guys there, and I'll see as many of y'all that want to drop into the TotalCon this weekend as you can. There will be a Discord general meeting room kind of thing going on, so you might get a chance to talk to some of the guests that way as well.
Well, thanks for being on, Alan. We really appreciate you coming on and talking to us. I want to go to a con right now. I'm just all I'm jazzed up.
And TotalCon is the con I can drive to, which makes it extremely special. Except when people are loading my trunk up with goodies that I couldn't buy myself. But hey, Mike and I are going to be back the next 3 nights at the very least. But we're going to be back Thursday, Friday, Saturday at 8 p.m. with guests to support TotalCon. Announcements will be made in the TotalCon Facebook group, amongst elsewhere. We do have Zach Glazer and Jim Wampler, I believe.
So it looks like Zach's going to be Saturday and Jim's going to be tomorrow, from what I'm seeing on my schedule.
All right. And I can't say that we won't have Skeeter. I'm not saying we're going to have Skeeter, but if you have Zach, it's quite likely that Skeeter's going to want to be a fly on the wall. No, we don't want.
No Skeeter. Nah.
But
we get to see him Monday. We get to see him Monday. Yeah, you never know. He may pop in.
He might pop in,
and we might have some of those people pop in too. You never know. We're open, wide open.
Listen, send Mike and I a PM if you would like to make an appearance. We'll just get you an invite as we're going. There's always room for more people in the chat, and there's always more people on screen. We're happy to have you. Let's see. Oh yeah, COVID. Use your common sense. You went through a fireball into a 10-by-10 room and kill your party outside the room in the hallway because common sense would have prevented you from doing it, right? Just use your common sense. We're not medical professionals. We don't make any claim to be. But common sense is the best way you can protect yourself and the people you care about. Be safe, be well, God bless. Roll those dice. And Mike and I will be back. Again, huge thanks to Allen. We're going to probably track you down for another one of these talking crits down the line.
Oh yeah, definitely.
There's more stuff we'd love to ask you, but
pretty much.
All right,
nice. All right. It's been a lot. Great talking to y'all again.
All right, folks. We are out of here.
Later.
Good night.